You see, I always fancied myself as a writer. People ask me, what do you do? I'm a writer. Oh, I'm a writer. But I wasn't really writing, I was dithering. It's about a woman who abused her child, a woman who was beautiful, wonderful, generous, lovely to be with for the entire world, except her daughter. Saras Manickam is a very clever girl. It was so nice. She wrote, I had to stop that ego thing. We all carry our own prejudices in our hearts and minds, and it does come out, and we need to be aware of it. I was a bloody bigot talking about race or gender or whatever when my child could just interact in pure friendship. And I wrote stories later, and they all failed.
All were rejected?
All were rejected,
Okay.
rejected. And I still get rejections. Tamil, because my father was Tamil, my mother was Malayali, but as I told you, she never taught us Malayalam. Until today, we regret it.
Teacher, trainer, copywriter, author of textbooks and workbooks and school books, award winning short story writer. We have with us Miss Saras Manickam. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you for having me, Roshni.
So, we are here trying to know more about people who are shaping our world. And we just have one question technically, and that is how did you? So, you are so many things all at the same time. I did not do you justice in the introduction because there's a lot and I don't want to take up more time. So, let me ask you, how did you start? When was that beginning of this professional career life of shaping this world?
Um, you make me sound like someone amazing. I'm
You
not.
are.
I'm not.
You are.
And I haven't. This is my debut collection of short stories. My stories have appeared in anthologies, magazines, but this is actually my debut. But
Collection of short
yeah, yes,
stories.
I haven't written novels, not yet. Um, I I resigned from government service. I was a teacher trainer, and all the time during school, when I was working in school, I was writing school books because I knew the syllabus. I knew how English books worked in school, so I was doing that. But I resigned quite early, and when I resigned, I knew you have to keep on working.
True.
You need to bring in the money. And as a freelancer, you took any job that came along that dealt with English, and that was how copywriting came about and all that. In the university, I wrote a few stories that appeared in women's magazines, and they got published, and I thought I was so clever. Saras Manickam, this is easy to write. Stories will get published anyhow, and I wrote stories later, and they all failed.
All were rejected?
All were rejected,
Okay.
rejected. And I still get rejections.
Still,
I still get
you
absolute,
don't say.
absolutely.
No.
And then I realized over the years that I was doing it wrong. When I was writing, and my stories have taught me that, when I was writing, I thought of me as the great writer, writing a story, telling the world how wonderful, not only the story, but how wonderful the author is.
Right.
My ego was very, I'm showing off. It didn't work because my stories are not about me. They're about the characters. They are about the flow of a story that the characters needed to tell. It's not my story. I'm a channel for them. So every time I stop think I say, okay, let me control the plot. Let me control how it's going. And it just stops. The characters stop working. They die on me, they lie flat. And I say, okay, what they're telling me is shut up and move aside and let us tell the story.
You might have just busted open the writer's block many people face.
Yeah.
So, what was that process like? How did you let the characters free?
Okay. The main story in this is My Mother Pattu. It's about a woman who abused her child, a woman who was beautiful, wonderful, generous, lovely to be with for the entire world, except her daughter,
Oh.
except for her husband. She was horrible. And and I knew Pattu, and I knew people, women like that.
I was
Growing
just
up,
about to ask, how did you come
growing
up
up,
with that
yes,
character?
I knew them, and I wanted to write a story to show how awful these people were and to punish her in my story. And it took me years to write it because, I was trying to push my way through, and the story went flat, flat, flat. It died. It was smug. It was pompous. It was moralistic until I learned in my own life about grief, about suffering, about loving, about losing. I had to grow up. And then I looked at Patu and I looked at her with compassion. I looked at her with greater understanding of how complex a woman can be. She's not all good. She's not all bad. She's not all abuser. She's also victim. She, we people are complicated. And when I finally realized that and respected that character, the story flowed. She gave me permission, as it were,
The
to write
character.
the character,
Right.
to write the story. And I think, I mean, I got a student from the Bronx
Mhm.
because the story appeared in this Bloomsbury anthology of the art of Asian short stories. And he said, "You're writing about my mother." Then
Oh,
and
they could relate it.
they related.
Okay.
Dozens of people come and tell me, "You're writing about my mother, my grandmother, my sister, my." And I realized, yes, they just needed a voice to come out and say, because people tell me, I want to hate Pato. She hits her daughter. But I couldn't.
Because
I
she's
couldn't.
someone that I know so deeply and
And also,
dearly.
she's complicated. There are good points to her, the bad points to her. You hate her when she hits her daughter, but you also understand her. There's some empathy because all of us have a bit of a complicated people. We're not all bad, not all good, not all moral. You know. So
Definitely.
I
That
had
was
to
the conflict.
learn. I had to learn to write honestly and authentically, and not try to be so clever and say, "Oh, Saras Manickam is a very clever girl. It was so nice. She wrote." I had to stop that ego thing.
And you did it so marvelously well, and hence the laurels coming your
Thank you,
way.
thank you. I hope so. I keep
Yes, definitely.
forgetting it.
Please don't. Why would you? We'd remind you all the time. And from that conflict of wanting to love a character that is not essentially all lovable, let me take you to the conflict of the identity that you have right from your name and the way you look and where
Yes.
you speak.
Yeah.
Because your name is Saras Manickam. Any person listening to that would immediately have an Indian in mind. And yes, you're ethnically Indian. And yet you do call a different place home, Malaysia. So please tell us about it. How did you deal with that conflict and what's the source of it?
There's never been a conflict.
Beautiful.
I am a Malaysian. I'm an ethnic Indian Malaysian.
Malaysia. Okay.
So I'm ethnic Indian with Malaysian operating apps.
Okay.
You know, and I wrote about that in a story because my stories talk about identity and belonging. When you're of a different race, and do you belong? Do you don't belong? In what way do you belong? So I am Tamil because my father was Tamil. My mother was Malayali, but as I told you, she never taught us Malayalam. Until today, we regret it. And I may have relatives in Palakkad, but if I see them face to face, I won't even know them. Because you never know.
Right.
We
Because
never
you
knew. So
never
that's
came back in
yes,
your childhood
never.
to
My
visit
mother was born in
Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Okay.
My grandmother came to Malaysia when she was 4 years old.
Okay.
So no contact. We had contact with my father's side. Having said that, I will when I come to Malaysia, India, and I came the first time in 2019, I realized I'm a visitor. I talk about it in my book. I love the food, I love the culture, I love people speaking Tamil or whatever. I was in Chennai at that time and I loved it, but it wasn't home.
Right.
When I went home, as my characters always as described it, when I went home, I went straight to a Chinese shop to eat kway teow,
Okay.
mee goreng, no, not Malaysian food, because your mindset is Malaysian. So when I've been here for a month, and I'm missing Chinese food, Malay food, quite a lot.
We hope that you do get good Malaysian food soon, and we'll try our best to make sure of that. And again, because you said there's been no conflict, and that's such a beautiful way to put
Yeah.
that. So, what's been the positives of actually being an ethnic Indian living in Malaysia? What has that added to your work and life?
Okay. To be an ethnic Indian living in Malaysia, it's very, very easy to whine about victimhood
Hmm.
because we have affirmative action in Malaysia based on race.
Right.
Okay, and we are Indians are not uh, uh, um, may feel do feel victims that they are victims because if you are of a certain race, and I won't mention race or religion, if a certain race you get privileges, benefits,
Hmm.
all right, and if you are not, you don't. And I needed to talk about that because you can never run away from race or religion or politics. If you want to be a serious writer, you can't pretend they don't exist. But at the same time, you don't have to be a victim. At the same time, you don't have to be holding a placard and protesting. I can't do that. I'm a coward. I
No,
can't
you're
do
not.
that.
You are. Words are sharper than swords, some
I
has
don't know.
said.
I can't fight like that. I'm not an activist, but I need to tell the truth as I see it in my stories, and I have to stand up and call it by its name when it is right or wrong. No, because we know discrimination, we live discrimination, and we need to talk about it. But I need to talk about it honestly because the as the victim is not always a victim. The victim can be as much a perpetrator. And to give you an example, in one of the stories, call it by its name, uh, the family, the girl, the director talks about, not getting a scholarship
Mhm.
after her father died. She tried not getting a grant, not getting a loan, not getting anything. So she had to fight to go and work and study at the same time. Okay, so right, poor thing. But she also talked about her mother, who, when the father was alive, the father would bring in his workers for lunch, and she'll tell, what is what is their race, what is their caste, what is their religion, how will I feed them?
She
Well,
was
hello, she
facilitating the
was
same thought.
exactly. So who is not a bigot, who is a bigot? It's a complicated thing. So as much as you're a victim, you're also a racist, and I needed to call that out, otherwise it's not fair, it's lopsided. So both ways. The only difference is in the enormity and in the percentage. But I think we all carry our own prejudices in our hearts and minds, and it does come out, and we need to be aware of it. Otherwise, my stories would come out as very pompous, very suffering, very full of suffering and very prone to victimhood. I did not want to do victimhood.
And just there, you have proved how brave you are, and you are not a coward. You are at war with people who actually write one sided stories. So it's already a war declaration right here. And from something as complicated as a war declaration and seeing both sides, and of course, having written a book that's basically a mirror to the society, let's go to a simpler but a layered concept of inspiration. I was lucky enough to interact with you before this
Yes,
interaction, and you said how your child inspired you to
yes,
think very differently when he was about 3 or 4 years old.
yes,
So
yes.
please share that story with
Okay.
us.
Senduran was 5 years old. He went to kindergarten.
Hmm.
We start at kindergarten at 5. And like all mothers, I was very excited. So the first day, second day, third day, he'd come back from school. He'd talk about his friend. We did this together. We did that together. My friend did this. My friend said that. And, okay, but what's your friend's name? I don't know. Boy or girl? I don't know. Okay. Chinese, Indian, Malay? Don't know. You know, wearing a pants or a skirt? Don't know. And then I said, what? Tell me about it. What's his name again? And then he turned around and said, Mom, I don't know what he is. He's just my friend. I don't know anything. He's just my friend. And that hit me that I was a bloody bigot talking about race or gender or whatever when my child could just interact in pure friendship with another human being, and I was trying to put that person into a box. Oh yeah, he taught me.
And of course, it does reflect the upbringing too. And on that note, let me ask you, you're seeing a lot of youngsters. So, how do you see the world changing? Many, like your son, they might have again gotten new perspectives as they grew up. They do have their own viewpoints about life. Is the world getting better or
Oh
worse?
yes. Um, you know, gender roles, stereotyping gender roles. We never had it
Hmm.
in my married life. But we had it growing up. You know, your father did certain things, your mother did certain things. Girls did the cooking and the washing. Boys did not do that. We grew up like that, but we did not have that in my house. And my son never grew up with gender differentiation in roles, in jobs. He did everything, and so did his cousins who were staying around with us. And therefore, they are different. They have no concept of why a girl shouldn't do this, or why a girl should do only this. You know. And one day, a relative, when he was young, came to the house, and she was shocked that he was setting the table, bringing the food to be cooked. She said, "You can't do this. Boys
You're not
mustn't do
allowed to
this.
be
You must
doing
go and
this.
study." And she was very upset because I have a disabled child, an older boy, and his father was giving him a wash,
She didn't
before.
expect to see
She
all
was
that.
shocked.
Okay.
And then my son turned around, "But who will do this? My mother is busy, my father is busy. I'm just setting the table. So what?" And so he grew up like that. And so they've always learned about, no differentiation in roles, whatever your gender. And that's how they react to the world. And I think it's so important.
Beautiful. And you've accomplished a lot already in your life. You have, including nailing the concept of humility, if I may add. What more do you plan for your life in future?
um, I don't know. I think I just want to write and be happy. I think life throws you spanner here and there, and shocks you, and life is not easy. So you're going to be happy, and you're going to be. I'm like 100 years old, so I don't want to pretend, and I don't want to apologize for my life. I want to learn courage, and I want to stand up for what is right from in my life. I want it to be an authentic life, and um, I don't want to pretend to make people happy. I'm too old for that kind of shit. So it's just that, just be what you are, as honestly as possible, as as decently as possible, without hurting people, without being cruel, to people or animals or whatever. Just be. And I think I'm doing that as much as I can. Um, a lot of money would help. So if the books sell well, or if that would help, but I'm not basing my life on that. It has to be an inner life that's really happy, because if life throws you a curveball, you still have to to live beyond it. I talk about that. Characters, ordinary characters, wives, mothers, migrant workers, facing extraordinary challenges and rising up above them, always needing to pay a price, because you're women usually. And but they pay the price, and they live their lives. They may not always succeed in doing what they're doing, but they do it anyway. And I think I want to live an authentic life.
And here's wishing that you're able to accomplish that. One final open ended question, if I may ask. This is not an open ended question, rather, it's an incomplete
All right.
question. I am requesting you to ask a question to yourself. So I'll start the question. You can complete it and then give us a
Uh-huh.
response. The question is basically the title of our podcast.
Mm.
It's How Did You? If you could ask yourself a question starting with How did you?
Oh, how did you embark on this serious journey of writing? Okay, in 2019, I won the Commonwealth Short Story Prize for Asia and for My Mother Pattu. Okay, that story took a long time to write. When I won it, you see, I always fancied myself as a writer. People ask me, "What do you do?" I'm a writer. Oh, I'm a writer. But I wasn't really writing. I was dithering. I was like, like a dilettante. And that wasn't right. When I won it, I realized, hey, people helped you in this journey. My writing coaches helped me, whether in Malaysia or at the Prague summer program, helped me. My family helped me. I have been standing on the shoulders of so many people who have been rooting for me and giving me space to write. I'd better show up for this shit and start taking it seriously. And therefore, I started writing very seriously. I got the stories that I had already published, looked at them. Some of them needed revision, some of them were all right. And I put them together. And it's really, this collection is really to honor the many, many people who have carried me on their shoulders, um, so that my dreams, so that my talents can come through. And I owed it to them to do this, you
And the
know?
world's a better place because you took that decision
Thank you.
so that they
Thank
can
you.
feel that bittersweet
Thank
pain.
you. Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure and a delight.
Thank you so much, ma'am.